Why your outside linebackers suck in college football 25. Another video yet again in the series talking about all the archetypes and all the positions in college football, why they suck, what you need to know about their upgrade path, why they upgrade the way they do, etc. We're going to get right into it with the different types of outside linebackers. So again, we split up the last video talking about linebackers. We went for a middle linebacker video and then an outside linebacker video because the outside linebackers need to be more of a diverse linebacker. Middle linebackers can more specialize in pass coverage and tackling, whereas the outside linebackers need to be great at everything that a middle linebacker does. In addition, they also have to be at least somewhat solid at the pass rush, and that is a scheme-dependent thing. Some guys need to be a little bit better than others at rushing the passer, especially if you're going to be using all of your outside linebackers more or less in coverage. But for a more traditional style of defense, a 3-4 defense is going to be sending some of those linebackers into blitz, and you want to have them at least be somewhat competent at the pass rush. So it's a little harder to find some just absolute studs at outside linebacker. We're going to show you how you can have the best chance to be able to do that in this one. The outside linebacker power rushers, they specialize in power moves, which is obvious. But I'm going to be comparing them with some of the defensive edge rushers because these are the guys that you're going to be putting them up against, basically. Because they need to be somewhat equivalent to what you would be using a defensive end power rusher for in comparison. They get a handful of abilities. The first one that's archetype specific for linebackers is duress. This is going to increase the pressure on a QB whenever they're unblocked and in front of the quarterback. Another ability that they get is takedown, which is the ultimate ability to prevent broken sacks, and they also can increase the amount of sack force fumbles that they get. Pocket disruptor is the third ability they get, which is the ultimate pass rush on 3rd and 4th downs, especially when it's 8 or more yards to the line of scrimmage. And then again, everybody's favorite ability on the defensive line, the quick jump ability, which is the ultimate jump off the snap when pass rushing. One thing that's really interesting to note is that the first 3 abilities I showed you, duress, pocket disruptor, and takedown, they're all power rushing abilities. Those are for the defensive end power rushers. Quick jump is the only one that was a speed rusher defensive end. So these outside linebacker power rushers get the best of all worlds. They can have all the great power rusher abilities with quick jump enabled as well. So you would not be able to get that combo using any sort of standard speed rusher or power rusher coming off the edge. But you would get that if you'd be moving a power rusher from the outside linebacker spot and just moving him in your depth chart to the edge rusher, which is a high level move that you guys see from this channel, as we're showing you the best tips and tricks that you can do to be able to get the best lineup and get really to just take advantage of all the best abilities in the game. So if you've learned anything so far in this video, I'd love it if you would make sure to hit that sub button so that you don't miss out any more of this information, because I'm going to be giving you a ton of more pro level tips throughout the rest of the course of this video. But we'll continue right along. And before we make the full swap into saying that outside linebackers are just better at pass rushing than the regular standard defensive ends, we really have to see how they upgrade first, because everything is situational. You can find some incredible stud defensive ends, so I still tend to use both. But again, if you've seen any of the previous videos, I talk a little bit more in depth, especially in the quarterback video, about how the game decides who upgrades what and why some players just seem to never upgrade and why they perpetually suck forever. But in this one, we'll kind of just sum it up a little bit quick here, but it has to do with how expensive some of the upgrades are for the players. Whereas this one, he needs 11 skill points to upgrade his quickness, so this is a really slow upgrade. This guy's speed, acceleration, and stamina is going to take forever to upgrade, and they might never upgrade it, since the game prioritizes the cheapest ability first before upgrading some of the more expensive ones like their quickness. But it's interesting to know that in this upgrade bucket, the quickness tier, it only upgrades those 3 attributes, speed, acceleration, and stamina. A lot of other tiers that we've looked at for all the other archetypes, they upgrade way more. Some of them have agility in here, some of them have an injury rating in here, some of them have change of direction. This is kind of a pretty skimpy bucket, to be honest. Like, they don't really upgrade a lot, and it's really expensive, so that's just straight up terrible. But pass coverage is another one that is super slow for them. Now, they do get press on here, which is kind of an interesting one, since most of the other archetypes, for their pass coverage, they only upgrade both man and zone, unless they're the pass coverage linebacker, which we'll get to in a little bit. But these guys also upgrade press, which is kind of interesting, but it's super slow. It needs 5 upgrade points to upgrade the first tier. That's going to take forever. But what's really nice about the outside linebackers for as far as upgrading their pass rushing moves is that they're both in the same bucket. For every other position on the defensive line, both defensive tackle and defensive ends, power and finesse moves are both in 2 different buckets. So you need twice the amount of skill points to upgrade those two, where these guys need just 5 skill points to upgrade both power and finesse, which is kind of wild. So they're going to end up becoming good at both, instead of just becoming a one-trick pony with just power or just speed, which is what most, if not all, of the edge rushers for the defensive line turn into. Next, we got the pass coverage guys, and these outside linebackers are so good. They're so good, especially at speed, acceleration, agility, change of direction, all coverage just in general, both man and zone. These guys are monster users. These guys can be a ton of fun, and they upgrade really, really well. They're some of the higher overalls in the game year by year for outside linebackers, and they get a handful of abilities too. So yet again, I'll be comparing them with the middle linebacker pass coverage guys, since they're the closest in terms of player type that you can get. But these guys also get house call, which is the same as the middle linebackers, but it's the ability to catch interceptions, and if it's the platinum version, you get unlimited stamina on returns. Knockout is another ability that also the middle linebackers get in addition. It increases their chance to be able to knock the ball out on a hit after the receiver catches it, and is going to prevent those broken tackles on those animations. The third one that they share in common with the middle linebacker pass coverage guys is the bouncer ability. It's ultimate fatigue added to the runners that are coming through a zone when you perform a successful zone chuck. Then the only difference that they have as far as abilities go is that outside linebacker pass coverage guys, they get this hammer ability, which is the ultimate hit stick ability. Increases your ability to hit sticks from a longer distance and improves your ability to land them. It's just, I really, really like this ability, especially if you're able to have some guy with a lot of strength and hit power. You could really wreak some havoc on opposing offenses with this ability, which is nice. But the downside to this is the middle linebackers, they get robber. So again, that's the ultimate ability to move in zone coverage. So it's just up to you which one of those two you prefer, whether you like the robber or you like the hammer ability. That might be a differentiating factor between in the offseason if you want to move one of your pass coverage guys to a middle or to an outside linebacker. What sells it for me the most is looking at the way that they upgrade. The pass coverage guys upgrade, look at this, 6 things in this pass coverage bucket. It upgrades their zone, their man, their catching, press, jumping, and spec catch. All of this for the cheap price of 4 skill points. This is incredible. This is wild. There is nobody even remotely close on any of the archetypes that upgrades this many insane upgrades in the same bucket. Like for a defensive person, this is wild. So I really don't see a reason why we would ever run a pass coverage middle linebacker when you could move them to outside linebacker and then just physically move them to outside linebacker and then play them in the depth chart as your middle. I don't really see a reason why to keep them in the middle unless you really, really like the robber ability instead of the hammer ability. But looking at the rest of the upgrades for these guys, it's just really, really good across the board. Again, the only thing that's slow is the quickness upgrade, which is exactly the same as the middle linebackers, but everything else just seems to be really no downside at all. Again, like we looked at this quickness tier, they get stamina and change of direction, which was one of the things that the power rushers didn't get. These guys just get so much bang for your buck for all the upgrades, and they seem to upgrade really quickly too. Then lastly, we have the outside linebacker run stoppers. These guys are great at strength, tackling, pursuit, play recognition, tackling. These guys are just all-out tackling machines. They get a handful of abilities that I will again be comparing with the run stoppers for the middle linebackers. One of the ones that they have in common is the blow-up ability, which is the ultimate ability to beat impact blocks. Then these guys also get inside disruptor, which again is shared with the middle linebackers. It's the ultimate shedding against inside runs, including double teams. But then they get outside disruptor as well, and this is for outside runs. So it's nice comparing the two because the middle linebackers, they only get inside disruptor, which is nice because they line up in the middle. But the outside linebacking run stoppers, they get both inside and outside. So even if you played them as a middle linebacker, but even though just their main position said outside linebacker, they would still be able to get both these abilities and make them an absolute menace at stopping the run for both in and outside runs. The only thing though is that the middle linebackers, instead of having this outside disruptor, they get hammer. So that's the increase to their hit stick ability. So if you like the hit stick ability and prefer having the middle linebacker run stoppers, that's fine. But if you want to have the ultimate ability to stop the run, getting both in and outside disruptor, I would definitely recommend moving them to an outside linebacker and then just putting them in the depth chart as a middle. But the main reason that I hesitate in doing that is the way that they upgrade. outside linebacking run stoppers, they upgrade so terribly. This is probably one of the worst upgrade pathways that I've seen so far from doing this research. And I haven't made it to safeties yet, but I know it's coming. But these guys are only good at upgrading run stopping and power. Everything else, well, IQ's not bad either, but their pass rush, their pass coverage, and quickness all takes forever. All takes an eternity. They're never going to be able to upgrade this stuff. They do get press in the pass coverage tier, which is a little bit obscure, but they're just never going to upgrade it. It's going to take forever to upgrade any of this stuff. They're going to be smart players, and they're going to have good strength and hit power, and they're going to be able to tackle well. And that's going to be all they are. They're just going to be very much one-trick ponies, which is really what you kind of have them in there for. If that's what you want as a run-stopping outside linebacker, you kind of have them in there for the ability, which should theoretically make them be able to fly through the upgrades and get to platinum in an outside disruptor way quicker than any of the other guys will, because they're going to be kind of not concerned with half the upgrades, so they're going to be spending them more on abilities than they will be on attributes. So it's kind of a 50-50. You can kind of take that as you wish and see what fits your scheme the best. The last thing to note, though, is sometimes when moving around positions, you might find someone who has a lot of finesse moves and you move them to an outside linebacker and they become a speed rusher. This is a glitch. I'm sure you're all aware of it at this point, but it is a glitch. They don't exist in the game. They're somehow coded in the game that there's a speed rushing archetype, but if you click on them with the triangle to go to their player card, they don't have any abilities. They have no upgrade buckets. They have nothing. They will gain experience, but they can't spend it on anything. So I would suggest moving them out of that position and putting them anywhere else. Sometimes that's been a reason why I can't have an edge rusher coming from an outside linebacker, because the only way that they're going to even have ways to upgrade is by putting them as a defensive end, because every time I would move them to an edge rusher on the outside linebacker spot, it would make them a speed rusher, and then they just wouldn't have any abilities. But I definitely just wanted to make sure you guys were aware that you knew about that glitch and that you would do something to change it so that you don't just waste your experience points. But that's going to about sum it up for this video. Definitely would love to see what you guys think about outside linebackers and about any of the information from comparing middle to outside linebackers, and if you've learned anything from this video. So definitely let me know what type of archetypes you guys prefer at the linebacker spot. And I'll see you guys in the next video where we're going to be talking about some defensive backs. But until then, why don't you check out one of these videos?